Hello, everybody. My name is Kimberly Cohen, and this is the Exec Edge podcast, powered by Uniqua AI. This podcast came about when we started Uniqua AI about 7 months ago, and it is designed to bring in thought leaders, founders, owners of different types of businesses and to talk about where they've been, where they're at right now, where they're going, and with a technology bent, usually asking about AI and how that's being implemented into their current roles. So today I have Gary Acevedo, and he is going to tell us a little bit about his business. So welcome, Gary. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. So tell me a little bit about your background, and then we'll get to talking about what you're doing currently.
Yeah, thank you. I was very blessed that while I was a young man, my first mentor was literally generations ahead of his time. And I didn't realize until I was a bit older just how ahead of his time he was. Like I went around the country and I dived into like over 30 different disciplines like hypnosis and NLP and Gestalt and all kinds of stuff. And I had never found anything as powerful as what my first mentor gave me over 40 years ago. And so the good news about that is that, well, I'll share another experience because the most profound experience of my career happened when I was working with a therapist at an intensive who had worked with John Lennon. And during that session, I had a revelation that everything that human beings criticize themselves for is actually a myth. Like people beat themselves up for being in overwhelm, like juggling too many balls,
Hmm.
sacrificing the family, being overweight, anxiety, depression, whatever. And I found out in that moment that everything people criticize themselves for is ultimately a hidden great gift, strength, and talent. So when I wrote the book, I put in the book, like, what is the great gift behind being in overwhelm? What is the great gift behind being overweight? All the different things I put, there are gifts within each one of them. And so in that moment, I realized human beings don't have hang-ups or dysfunctions. They are perfect, even though most people would never believe that if I told them. But so I started taking all of my trainings and I started redesigning them to focus on what's right with them.
Yeah.
Like during most of my trainings, at the end of the first night, I'll do a thing called the greatest key to influence.
Hmm.
And because in your lifetime, what you can be or what you can do or what you can have is going to greatly depend on your ability to influence others. Well, the greatest key to influence is to recognize and to speak to one's highest nobility. So, I'll have somebody volunteer who's brave enough and safe enough. And then I have this room of strangers like acknowledge what are their greatest gifts, strengths, and talents. What do they see in them that they could be or do or have? And it's a very touching process.
Yeah.
You know, people are amazed at how much they can see. And certainly the person in front of the room is, typically one of the best moments of their life. And then I get them in small groups, and they do that for each other. And when I've done this with companies, it's amazing to see how productivity goes up when they just do something like this for the first 10 or 15 minutes of each day. It's amazing. And I've done it in classrooms, and, it's the greatest key to influence.
Yeah, I've heard that there's an expression, your thoughts become words and words become actions. I don't remember the exact what
Yeah.
that is exactly, but it really is sort of manifesting, changing the narrative on yourself and then manifesting that success just from starting from thoughts. and then taking it into a plan of action.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. You know, most people don't realize that there are two theaters in your consciousness. There's a fear-based theater, which is the one that says, shut up, watch out, you shouldn't say that, all the fear-based stuff. And then there's the love and the play theater in your mind's eye. And most people don't realize the average person lives 80 to 95% of every day in the fear-based theater.
And why do you
And
think that is? Why do you think that is?
I'm so glad you asked because when we're very young, like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, everybody gets wounded.
Mhm.
And when children get wounded, they make up what's wrong with me and they use the worst words possible. Like, I'm different. I'm not good enough. I'm worthless. I'm unlovable. We call it the emotional black hole.
Mhm.
People don't realize that they create a bubble of reality around them and everything gets filtered through that reality. And so they end up acting out like in their relationships, in their business,
Yep.
these patterns that they are totally unconscious about. It's all in the subconscious. So the more I've studied the subconscious and designed my trainings to really inject more subconscious safety, the more people rise to these higher states of being where someone's life can literally change in an instant.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you think, I mean, overall, I think about people that I've talked to, myself growing up and things like that. What generation do you think that has is showing more of that than another? So, you're talking to people of all different
Yeah,
stripes, ages, and things like that. What are you seeing as a generation that is more having that type of a wound, and why do you think that is?
actually, the way it works is that every time those of us who are on the earth add an ounce of love, compassion, kindness to the planet, it changes something about the nature of the earth, and each generation comes in a little more evolved or
Mhm,
enlightened. So your great grandparents did not have what we call now the inner game. Like
mhm,
they just toughed it out. But your grandparents were more evolved than them, your parents were more involved than them, and you're more involved than them, and your kids are going to be more evolved than you. Now, the trouble with that, with your kids, is that every generation comes in a little more sensitive.
mhm.
And sensitivity is a great gift, but like all gifts, it's a double-edged sword. Like being brilliant is a gift, but if it's used as a shield, then you can be a know-it-all and it gets in your way.
Right.
Great gifts are always a double-edged sword. And so, this generation is really struggling in all kinds of ways. And some of them have enormous, like spiritual gifts and
Mhm.
sensitivity, but they don't know how to handle it. So I love, like in my retreat, I do a retreat called The Awakening. I've had 3 generations who went through the awakening, brought their kids, and then they brought their kids. And I love watching what happens when kids are in that retreat because everybody has enormous potential. Great to watch the greatest gift you can give your children is self-esteem.
Oh, for sure.
And so when kids or adults up level their self-concept,
Mhm.
like most people they're not really conscious of the fact that they come into the workplace or their home life and they're in effort, burden, struggle, stress, strain, and their come from is maybe if I fix this, I'll be okay.
Mhm.
And so in my trainings, whether it's like Fortune 500 companies or small companies or the public, we help them to change that, to transform that to I'm already okay. So if I'm okay, how good could I stand it? And then growing becomes a whole different thing. They become less defensive. They accelerate the pace at which they grow. And, when I do this for companies, it's amazing to watch the results.
Yeah.
Like, the breakthrough process that I first went through, that breakthrough process that I've evolved, it helped Mark Hughes create Herbalife.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it helped Ron and Joseph bring 12.5 million people out of poverty using microloans. It helped Bert save his company that today is saving hundreds of premature babies' lives every day. It helped one of my students, Renee. She just got invited to speak to the UN.
That's
And
incredible.
her and her husband, their dream when they came into my long-term program, Movement to Mastery, her dream was to create a drug rehab.
Mhm.
And so far, they've helped 15,000 people. And because she's so brilliant in her medical innovations, she got invited to the UN like that. And these kind of tools ignite not only people's emotional gifts, but also their spiritual gifts.
Mhm.
Like one of my students just had her first $1 million year because when she did the retreat, her spiritual gifts exploded and she got her first million year teaching
That's incredible.
what she received from those spiritual gifts.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I love what I do. I love watching people blossom.
That's awesome.
There's nothing better. And part of what part of what I try to share with people is that the most, success is not a function of how you respond when things go well. Like every person, every business, has successes and failures, and we make mistakes.
Mhm.
I'm going to just turn my phone off for a second. Okay. So success is not a function of how you respond when things go well. Success is a function of how you respond to failure. When you make mistakes, when you get egg on your face, when you fall down, when you know, like we do a whole workshop on this topic because I found out that what helps people accelerate the pace at which they grow and the blessings that come from higher ground is to diminish their own level of defensiveness, their own level of self criticism. Because you cannot be defensive unless you're making yourself bad and wrong.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good way of thinking about it. And then probably gaining an understanding of where other people are coming from as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. In almost every course, the end of the first night is we call it the greatest key to influence because in your lifetime, what you can be, what you can do, what you can have is going to greatly depend on one key ability, your ability to influence others. And so I'll have somebody volunteer come up to the front, and this group of strangers will call out what they think are their greatest gifts, strengths, and talents, or what they think they could be or do or have.
Mhm.
And it's amazing. It's a very touching process because everybody's amazed that I can see that much in somebody else because nobody teaches us how to look. And
Yeah.
then the person in front of the room, it's like a life-changing experience. And then, of course, we get them in small groups and they do it for each other. And, people get blissed
Mhm.
just because people forget that we all recognize like compliments that somebody gave us in grade school, in junior high, in high school. You know, we forget. And so I always tell people if you want to help with the chaos that's on the planet, learn how to recognize everyone's highest nobility and make sure that you speak to them like that. That's how to get what you want with people.
Right.
Like even my cousin who worked for the mayor, when I taught her this, she started looking, and every time somebody would talk, I told her, I want you to look and see what is the positive intention behind their negative behavior, and then say that to them. Everybody in the mayor's office thought that she walked on water because she always did that. She kept looking. I call it the sweetheart message. What's the sweetheart message?
That's amazing. So, in terms of your business, you're doing the events that you're running. How are you growing that business? Is it referrals? Is it word of mouth? How do you grow
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, we've tried a lot of things and we never stopped trying things. But last 2 years, we spent too much money on marketing and most of them didn't do much. And we found over the years, because my whole career, I've tried a lot of different things, and we found out that the best thing is word of mouth. And so what we do is we offer people, like we have our intro workshops are $500 to $1,000, sometimes 1,500, but we offer these great deals. Like if they're brand new, they can get it for like 150 or something. And then there's like these packages where if they pay a certain amount, they can invite as many people as they want and split the fees, which gets more people in. And once they do one of these intro workshops, then they're ready to actually go for a higher ticket item. Because after one of those workshops, like the one we're doing in a couple of weeks, is called Success in All Relationships. That's a very popular course. And once they see the power of that, then if I put the higher ticket items in front of them, they're much more likely to go for that, especially the program that lets them do payments.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
Perfect.
that's our best marketing tool. Even though like this year I'm going to try to get a TEDx talk and I'm going to invest in schools so we can try to build the community. We're
Yeah.
always trying new things, but that's what's worked the best over the decades.
Perfect. So, what are you looking at for the roadmap for the future? Do you train other people to do the events like what you do in order to expand, or you're the
Absolutely.
principal?
Actually, to answer that question, I'm going to start by telling you my higher purpose, my highest context. Because I literally, at the end of the awakening, the last day, I spent a whole day teaching people that the greatest key to manifest your vision is higher purpose. So it takes a whole day because it's an art and a science. But I'm going to share my highest purpose. My highest purpose is to have a big piece of the pie of bringing heaven on earth. Now, the way I want to do that is my strategy is to create as many influencers, leaders, speakers, coaches, healers, parents, grandparents, people who don't want to just make money, people who want to make a real difference for the planet.
Yeah.
So, over the last 40 plus years, I've become a master at facilitating, and I'm going to start. I mean, I've created a lot of people who are doing a lot of good, but I'm realizing I need to start I'm going to start training people in a program that I'm going to call World Class Facilitators and Healers.
Mhm.
And I'm going to start training people how to do what I do so they can either run my retreat when I'm gone or do their own thing. And in our programs, we teach them how to produce. They can lease my intellectual property so that they can go out and do their own fantastic things.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, I think school would be a really great platform for you
Yeah,
for this whole movement that you have going. Great. Well,
yeah, I agree.
I really thank you for your time today. Thanks for sharing what you're doing. And do you want to give a quick plug on where people can find you to talk about it more?
Yeah, they can find me on riseleadershipgroup.com. That's our website.
Awesome.
And they can email me to Gary, Gary, at rise, RISELG.com until my staff gets overwhelmed.
Sounds good. You need AI to handle your email inbox.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Well, Gary, again, really thank you for your time today. Wish you luck in your 26, 27 goals, and we'll talk soon and see you later.
Sure.